What if I told you that someone right now reading this exact sentence could turn $0 into $10 million in the next 365 days? Sounds impossible, right? Almost like a scam. But here's the strange part. It has happened. Not once, not by luck. It has happened again and again across different countries, different industries, different people with completely different backgrounds. So the real question isn't, is it possible? The real question is, what do these people actually do differently? What is the hidden mechanism behind turning nothing into millions in such a short window of time? Stick with me, because by the end of this, you're going to see money, time, and opportunity in a completely different way. Let's start with the obvious question. If this is possible, why doesn't everyone do it? Most people believe wealth is built slowly. Get a degree, get a job, save a little every month, retire in your 60s with a decent pension. That's the script society hands you. But here's where things get strange. When researchers at Stanford studied ultra fast wealth creation, they found something unexpected. The people who built massive wealth in short periods weren't smarter than everyone else. In many cases, they weren't even more skilled. What separated them was something psychologists call asymmetric bet making. That means putting yourself in positions where the potential upside is enormous, but the potential loss is small or controlled. Think about that for a second. Most people spend their whole lives avoiding risk. But the people who go from zero to millions are doing something almost the opposite. They are hunting for situations where a small risk could create a massive reward. That's the first clue. But it's not the whole story. Because if taking risks was all it took, casinos would be full of millionaires. So there has to be something else going on. In 2016, psychologist Angela Duckworth published a study on what she called grit, the combination of passion and sustained persistence toward long-term goals. Her research found that grit was a stronger predictor of success than raw talent or intelligence. And here's the twist. The people who go from zero to $10 million in a single year usually aren't beginners in the traditional sense. They've already failed multiple times, quietly, before the world ever saw them succeed. That's the part nobody shows you. Behind almost every overnight success story is a version of that same person, 2 or 3 years earlier, sitting in a room, completely broke, watching a previous idea collapse. So then the question becomes, what changes between failure and that explosive year of growth? This is where it gets interesting. Researchers studying entrepreneurship at MIT found a pattern. They called it compounding skill stacking. It means that each failed attempt wasn't actually a waste. It was quietly building a skill: marketing, sales, negotiation, understanding human psychology, recognizing patterns in the market. On their own, none of these skills seem powerful. But when several of them stack together in one person, something strange happens. That person suddenly becomes capable of moving faster than everyone around them. It's like watching someone practice throwing a single dart for years, missing the target every single time. And then one day, they realized they weren't supposed to be throwing one dart. They needed three, aimed together at the exact same point. And when all three hit at once, the impact isn't 3 times stronger, it's exponential. This explains why the growth doesn't look gradual from the outside. It looks sudden, explosive, almost magical. But here's where things get even stranger: timing. In 1962, economist Everett Rogers introduced something called the diffusion of innovation theory. It explains how new ideas and technologies spread through a population in stages. First, a tiny group of early adopters. Then a slightly bigger wave. Then the majority. Then the stragglers. Now here's the part that connects everything. The people who go from zero to millions in a year are almost always positioned at the exact moment a new wave begins. Not too early when the idea is untested and confusing, Not too late when everyone else has already caught on and the opportunity is crowded. They are right in that narrow window. The moment when something is just becoming obvious but hasn't become common yet. This is why so many of these stories cluster around new platforms, new technologies, new shifts in human behavior. Not because these people were psychic, but because they were paying close attention while everyone else was distracted. So we have three ingredients so far: asymmetric risk taking, compounded skill stacking from past failure, and precise timing inside a wave of change. But there's a fourth ingredient, and this one is almost never talked about: speed of execution. A famous internal study at Y Combinator, one of the most successful startup accelerators in the world, found that the biggest difference between explosive founders and average founders wasn't the idea itself. It was how fast they moved from idea to action. The average person waits, they research, they plan, they wait for the right moment, which somehow never actually arrives. But the people who scale from zero to $10 million treat time like it's actively working against them. They launch messy, imperfect versions of their idea within days, not months. They correct in public, they adjust in real time. And this changes something deep in the psychology of momentum. Every small win creates dopamine. Every dopamine hit fuels faster action. Faster action creates more feedback. More feedback sharpens the strategy. It becomes a loop that feeds itself, gaining speed the same way a snowball grows rolling down a hill. That's when everything changes. What started as a small, uncertain bet suddenly becomes a machine that seems to be growing on its own. But here's the real mystery, the one most people never stop to think about. If the ingredients are this identifiable: risk, skill stacking, timing, and speed, why doesn't everyone apply them? The answer might be uncomfortable, because doing all four at once requires something most people are quietly terrified of. Not failure, visibility. To move fast, you have to be seen while you're still figuring things out. You have to be watched while you're imperfect. And for most human beings, evolution has wired something ancient into the brain. For thousands of years, being judged by your tribe could mean losing your place in the group. Being wrong in public could mean danger. So the brain protects you. It tells you to wait, to prepare more, to avoid the risk of being seen struggling. But the people who built $10 million in a single year have somehow overridden that ancient wiring. Not because they don't feel fear, but because they've decided the fear of staying invisible is worse than the fear of being seen and failing. So maybe the real story here isn't about money at all. Maybe the $0 to $10 million year was never really about income. It was about a decision. A single, quiet decision to stop waiting for permission and start moving before you feel ready. And that leaves you with one uncomfortable question. If the only thing standing between an ordinary year and an extraordinary one is the willingness to be seen before you're ready, what exactly are you waiting for?